Record and want to say thank you and welcome. We really appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedules to attend this event. Through all of this, we continue to try to listen to our membership and really dial into what you guys are in need of. And we felt like this was going to be a really great session to offer at this time. We've got a great lineup of speakers who I will show you their wonderful faces right here, right now. We also appreciate them taking time to talk about their expertise in their different areas. So Jackie is joining us today from the QTI group. Excuse me, we have Verna here from Creative Business Interiors, and Brenda, a familiar face to probably a lot of you, is here from ServPro. So like I said, we're gonna give each of them about 10 to 12 minutes to kind of run through. They've got some slides prepared and some talking points. And then we'll save at the end for some question and answer that you guys, if you have specific things that you'd like to ask the group. A few reminders, if you can leave yourselves on mute during this, that kind of helps cut out that background noise. We do encourage you to turn your camera on. It's always nice to see other faces and helps our speakers feel a little bit more engaged with the group. And then also in terms of the chat, we are monitoring that. So if you guys have questions, you'd like to type them in there, we'll save those for the end and we'll address those with our speakers. So with that, I would just really love to turn it over to Jackie to start the presentation.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Kristen, and thank you to the Middleton Chamber for inviting QTI today. Good afternoon, everyone. So for those of you unfamiliar with QTI, our focus is on helping organizations reach their full potential through people. So we do this through a variety of HR service offerings, including staffing, recruiting, HR consulting, and HR outsourcing. And my presentation today is going to be an overview of preparing to either reopen or resume your business operations. We all recognize that the landscape has been ever changing since March and no one has all of the answers. But we'll talk about some decision points to consider, compliance requirements, policy considerations, safety issues, best practices, things you may want to consider as you start making your preparations. Again, as you think about how to successfully and compassionately reintroduce employees back into the workplace, remember there's no one-size-fits-all plan, and your culture and your business model will determine your next necessary steps. So Kristen, if you can go to the next slide. This is just a quick agenda, what I just kind of ran through. Thank you, perfect. So, so decision points. Who are your decision makers? Is it going to be one person? Are there various stakeholders? Just making sure everyone's on the same page, everyone is in alignment, and everyone's ready at the same time. When your employees can return back to the workplace is going to be a decision based on local, county, and some federal guidelines. So there are some really good industry-specific guidelines. One thing is available, I found, with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, as well as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has a nice state-by-state business reopening guide. All of these are available on our QTI website. So, you don't have to take too many notes. I'll give all that to you at the end. Some other resources to consider too are the CDC, EEOC, and OSHA. So how to return those employees back to work. So you probably don't want to return them all at the same time, bring everybody in on the same day. You'll probably want to consider some type of staggered approach, rotating schedule, phased in approach so that people can come in, feel comfortable with the potential changes, comfortable with the environment again, and then take turns coming in until it's ready for everyone to be there at the same time. You may want to continue maintaining some type of remote workforce if that's what you're doing right now. So it's important also to rethink your physical workspace, and that's set up for social and physical distancing. Communicate frequently and transparently with your employees. You're going to hear me say this multiple times throughout this conversation. This is kind of just my mantra. You always want to make sure that you're creating documentation for people to refer back to so they know what to expect and so they know how to behave. So consider providing employees with an expected timeline for recalling or rehiring employees. Provide returning employees with some type of recall letter or new offer letter. There may be changes to the times of the work schedule, or there may be changes to what their responsibilities may be. Those are just good things to just have on paper and to be able to give them that to come back to work. Be prepared for dealing with employees who are facing increased personal challenges, things like bereavement, financial stress, childcare issues, and other support needs. And whenever possible, consider any type of flexibility you can provide and adjusting workloads to be reasonable. Slide, please. Right, some postings and some policies to consider. So if you haven't already, there is a, it's called the FFCRA, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act poster. So it is a required poster that needs to be physically posted in your work site, someplace where your employees are going to see it frequently. If you have employees who are still working at home, please email it to them, put it on an internal website if you have it, but it is a required document. And then some different policies to consider. We'll start with your hiring practices. So, you know, hopefully sometime in the near future, if you aren't already at a point where you can be considering hiring new employees. So what is that going to look like? How are you going to interview them? Will it be virtually? Will it be on site? Will you test for COVID-19 prior to them hiring? That's something that you can do, but it's how you do it and how you go about it is the important thing. How will you onboard and train? It's going to look differently this time, okay? And then if you're recalling or rehiring employees who have been furloughed, please determine and document who you're recalling and in what order to ensure non-discrimination. Prepare your processes now to ensure a good candidate experience that represents your company well. Other policies to review are your leave policies. So the FFCRA that I mentioned, how does that work with some of your other policies like the standard FMLA, sick leave, bereavement leave? People may be utilizing their vacation differently this year. So does your plan, your current vacation plan, require any kind of forfeiture of unused vacation time? Consider allowing maybe additional rollover or grace periods next year. What about your remote policies or work from home policies? You may have never had people work from home before. We all scrambled and made that happen in some cases. So, you know, if that's working for you and your employees and it's effective, you're finding, is that going to continue? How is that going to look? Maybe for right now, childcare requirements are a little more lax, but at some point you might want to make some changes to that. So consider those things and work on those things that you've already started here. Check your travel policies to make sure employees and customers continue to feel safe, whether it's just locally around town, having meetings or traveling to different states, but taking a look at those and reevaluating. And then with any policy or procedure, anytime you make any edits or create a new policy, it's important that you publish them, distribute them, so again, employees know what to expect and how to behave. Right, next slide, please. Onto health and safety. So again, we're going to document and explain, document, the HR mantra. So to explain company policies, procedures related to illness, cleaning, disinfecting of the workplace, work meetings, and travel. All those things need to be documented so people know how to behave. Are you going to be providing that protective equipment, or is that something that employees are going to need to bring to the workplace with them? Will you take employees' temperatures each day when they arrive? Again, this is something you can do, but how you do it, how you manage it is something that's going to be very important as well. Explain any workplace hour schedule changes, as I mentioned before, as well as any physical workspace or foot traffic flow changes. Educating employees how to reduce the spread of the virus at home and at work. I know we've heard about this through the internet, online, we've been bombarded with it. But it's good to keep those postings in front of everyone, educating them just as reminders for the good hand hygiene and those COVID do's and don'ts. The CDC offers some really good education posters that you can just print off and post in different places. Similarly, keep reinforcing that social and physical distancing and the good hand hygiene. We're going to get comfortable when we see each other. We're going to be happy to see each other. People are going to want to hug and shake hands. But we need to not be forgetful. We need those gentle reminders. So don't feel bad about putting those out there. And then making sure, most importantly, making sure that employees know that if they become sick or come in contact with someone who's been ill, that they stay home and they follow those CDC guidelines. Right, next slide, please. So a couple of best practices. You'll want to continue to pay attention to any local public health or other orders related to COVID-19 that may affect your business. You may want to consider designating one single workplace coordinator who's responsible for all the COVID-19 issues. So, you know, sometimes you have too many cooks in the kitchen. narrowing that down to one person may streamline your processes. Ensure your workplace cleaning company is up to date on current methods for safely removing COVID-19 hazards, and maintaining if you can, a 30-day supply of items like hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, masks, if those are things you're supplying. Acknowledge that your employees may feel unsettled about returning back to work. Acknowledge those concerns and then treat any announcements with sensitivity. Recommend your employee assistance program as a resource, or consider adding one if you don't have one in place. And then lastly, welcome your employees back, communicate your appreciation to them, develop a plan to operate and communicate in the event this virus has a resurgence or something similar may come up in the future. All right, next slide, please. And then lastly, just a few closing comments. As I said before, communicate clearly, openly, authentically, and regularly, both verbally and in writing, so employees know what to expect and how to behave. Be flexible if you can. Schools and daycares continue to stay closed. Summer programs we're hearing are not opening for the summer. People still have their concerns, and there is no one-size-fits-all answer. So continue to try to be as compassionate and flexible where you can. Consult with your appropriate experts. Times are tricky, and good faith will go a long way for you, although it will never replace having really good expert HR, legal, and financial consultation. And then my closing statement is we've all learned a lot in the last few months. We've been creative of how we work and how we keep our economy going. So reflect on those changes that you've made and what have been good practices that you may want to keep and build upon in your future. So Kristen, one last slide. If you just want to show everyone, this is a resource page. You'll get a copy of this, and they'll all be links that you can take a look at on our QTI website. So with that, I am all done.
Perfect. Thank you, Jackie. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
So like Jackie said, I should have mentioned in the beginning too, we are going to send out the slide deck afterwards. So you guys will have access to all of the links and information in the presentation. So next, I would love to turn it over to Verna from Creative Business Interiors.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. I'm representing Creative Business Interiors. I am the Director of Design Services. I'm based in our Milwaukee office. We have an office in Madison and an office in the Fox Valley as well. So today, we're going to talk a little bit more about what should we consider for bringing people back into the office. And one thing I want to start out by saying is the workplace truly matters. It's not going to go away. We need the workplace. We need people to come back together and feel safe and have that sense of community that ties them and supports interaction, human interaction, but it also ties them to the company that they work for and they represent. And we absolutely can create an environment that is safe for everyone. Absolutely, we can do that. You know, the design professionals are design thinkers, and we truly are. Design thinkers solve problems. That's really what we do. And the workplace has always been evolving, and it will always continue to evolve. COVID-19 is just another problem that we have to deal with and we have to solve. Not my favorite problem right now, but definitely something we are all struggling with. So we're going to really break down returning to the office in 3 steps. It makes life a little bit easier to think about what's the immediate or short term, and what's the midterm expectations or considerations, and what's the long term, which are definitely things we need to consider. Okay, next slide, please. Everyone is coming back to the office with a different set of concerns, a different set of expectations, and every business has a different culture, a different tolerance, a different belief. And as Jackie mentioned, you know, there's many resources that we need to consider. Also consult with CDC, absolutely, but your legal counsel, your HR professionals, they play a key role in helping businesses establish protocols for bringing people back. But as you transition from home office to your work office, it's going to look different. It's going to look different for everyone. And really, as Jackie said, one size doesn't fit all. We need to really think of that as we move forward. So next slide, please. One thing that is truly important, you can jump to the next one right away. that we want to think about is the home office probably isn't going to go away. We're probably going to be dealing with what that means in varying degrees. Whether you've always worked at home or you've worked at home a portion of the time, or we want to be prepared for if there's a resurgence and we need to go back to the home office. So let's think about what people are dealing with. Are they sitting at the kitchen table? Do they have healthy, ergonomic tools to help them be productive at home? As an employer, you might want to consider, you provide those things in the office. Well, maybe we need to look at providing some of those tools and resources in people's home offices. They don't have to be a big expenditure, height adjustable desk, a very healthy ergonomic chair, a monitor arm that can help people adjust. Things that tools people are used to working at work in, now we need to think about that as they work from home. Next slide, please. Once we start to come back on this very short-term conversation that we're considering, there's some very simple things. As I said, everyone is going to think differently, but social distancing is going to be important, and providing separation. These are things that help people feel safe or want to rebuild trust. We want them to feel the workplace is appropriate for them to come back. So what does that look like? Next slide, please. We've all been used to seeing the X's on the floor at the grocery store, right? Or waiting in line at Target because we can't get in. We need to continue those social visual cues in the office. People are going to come back, and as Jackie said, you're going to see faces you haven't seen in a while, and you're going to forget, oh yes, I need to do an air hug or an elbow pump. Those are things that also need to be reinforced through the office. Wash your hands, stand here. This is how many people fit in the elevator. You have to wait your turn. All those kinds of visual cues. There's a million of options with this. They can be graphics you can create, your business can create, or there's packages and tools that we can help you with. But really defining and posting things to help people start to remember, yes, I'm comfortable in the office, but oh yes, I have to do these certain things. Next slide, please. Separation's a big one. I think we're all becoming a little bit more familiar with those plexiglass screens at the checkout counters. Well, now think about your reception area or greeting spaces or your concierge desk. We want to create and provide separation, whether that's a short-term solution, as you see on the screen, something simple that can be easily affixed to a current furniture or current desk piece, or it's something a little bit more permanent in a midterm solution. But for now, we're really just trying to, again, instill that people have trust, separation from myself to protect myself and protect the visitors and guests. You also might want to consider limiting your visitor and guest traffic or designating certain locations for them. They need to stay, visitors and guests need to stay in this location, and then that location is sanitized after they leave. Next slide, please. Sanitation, boy, that's our favorite topic, isn't it? If your hands aren't dry now from hand sanitizer, they sure will be for a while. But this is a visual cue. This is also something we need to reinforce. After you leave your meeting space, you need to sanitize that table, those chairs, that telephone, that computer, the marker board, the markers you use for the marker board. We really need to help people remember sanitation is important. Posting sanitation stations, as you see on the slide, but also posting your sanitation protocols. So visual cues to help people remember. Next slide, please. Washing our hands with soap and water for 20 seconds is really the way to go, right? We all understand that. But we maybe don't always think about areas within your facility that could now act as sanitation stations. Maybe it's a coffee bar or a hospitality area or your break room. Places that by simply inserting soap, some signage, and some paper towel have now become sanitation stations. If you don't have access to those type of areas, there are products like mobile sinks that can be inserted throughout your facility to, again, help people wash their hands. Next slide, please. This is still on the short-term considerations. We really want to take a look at all of our spaces. Spaces that are closed, private spaces like conference rooms, places that are maybe open amenity spaces like your break room or your fitness room. We want to help people remember how many people can safely be in those spaces, how traffic needs to safely move through those spaces by simply posting a diagram on the door and highlighting where people need to sit or operate will help them feel comfortable and will help maintain social distancing. Another option in these areas is to actually take the furniture out of those spaces, and that choice then is made for people. They don't have to wonder, is this the right chair? The chair to sit in. But we definitely want to consider this in all spaces. Next slide, please. Conference rooms have taken on a new look. When you think of social distancing and maintaining that 6 feet of separation, a conference room that potentially has held 14 people before, it's not going to hold that many anymore. It's going to hold 6 or 7 people. So now, where do you have your bigger type meetings? We want to rethink your space so that bigger meetings can be accommodated in bigger open spaces. And bigger conference rooms now become mid-sized conferencing spaces for enclosed interaction. But again, posting signs, plans, visual cues will help us all. And we're here to help you do this. Next slide, please. Primary work areas. This is going to become a challenge if it's not already for most organizations. We have very dense floor plans. We have dense work environments where we have cubicles in most situations. How do you still maintain social distancing and separation? Well, simply the easiest thing in the short term is to rotate your staff. Group A comes in this week, Group B comes in next week. Now you're maintaining that social distancing. You can also definitely add screens and dividers, but this is the short term, most immediate, get people back in feeling comfortable. Rotation makes sense. Next slide, please. This is one of my favorite things, collaboration. I love to talk, if you haven't figured that out already. And I think collaboration should be something we embrace forever. We learn from each other. We thrive with people. We all, most of us, have spaces within our offices where people come together, whether it's the water cooler, or it's the file cabinets or the copy machine, or it's places like this where it's more of a casual setting. We want to maintain social distancing. So drawing a circle on the floor is one way of doing it. Taking a tape measure and mapping out 6 feet from chair to chair and separating the furniture, pulling it apart will help us. In these cases, again, we might need to eliminate pieces of furniture and put them in storage for temporary. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to jump into the midterm. These are things that probably have a little bit more cost investment. There's maybe a little bit more lead time. It's going to take a little bit to get them. So we want to think them through. We also want to definitely consider and be thoughtful for how we're designing this and how we're recommending the midterm, because the investment here is probably a little greater. Okay, next slide. How do we, in primary workplaces, create separation? You can add panels or separating screens to work surfaces to create that separation of 6 feet. One thing to consider is height adjustable work surfaces. Many of us use them and have them, and we want to keep them. Standing and sitting helps us all be healthy. It gets the blood moving, the oxygen's going. We want to keep that up. But at the same time, we need to create separation. So as you can see from the orange screen, it's mounted to the surface. So as the desk or surface goes up, so does the separation in the screen. Definitely things we want to consider in the midterm. Next slide, please. Another example of that screen, this is a little bit more permanent and on more sides. If your surfaces don't go up and down, this is a great solution. They come in a variety of heights. It can be a cleanable fabric or it can be a hard surface. It could also be a marker surface that you could use for multiple things. Next slide. Creating and building your panels up to a higher height. That's going to help us with that separation and social distancing, but I would really urge us to make sure that they're glass or see-through. Nothing worse than building cubes that are super hot, tall, and now we have no access to natural light. We have no access to interaction or people around us. So definitely we want to encourage you to think of glass when we're raising panel heights. It's also very cleanable. Next slide, please. For those areas that separation really becomes a primary critical importance, maybe it's a manager's workstation, we want to think about or can add a door. Again, another way of creating that separation, it can be glass, just like the adding on panel heights. You could do all of these that I've mentioned to a workstation and really create quite the little separation. Next slide, please. We also don't want to think about necessarily having to buy something for separation. You might have some of these tools in your showroom or your office right now. Maybe it's a mobile marker board or a screen. You can definitely repurpose them and use them for creating distance or separation between users or workers. But it's also something, if you don't have that you can purchase. And now it's an item that you're investing in that could have multiple functions. So we want to think about how you're investing in separation and making sure it's right for your culture and your organization. Next slide, please. Oh boy, now we're going to jump into the long term. These are bigger things. These are definitely things that are a little bit more major to think about, a little bit more major in cost investment. But if you're in the process of planning a new building or a new space, definitely things we want to consider. Okay, next slide. Air flow, air circulation systems. When was the last time your filters have been changed? How much air is moving through the circulation system? Maybe we want to consider upgrading. Airflow and air circulation are going to be critical. Another simple thing to add, though, could be just interior plants. Live, not fake. Live plants will help you clean your air and process air. Good space planning, good design has always promoted access to natural light, and that's not going to go away. That illusion of that access to space, access to nature really helps people feel safer and comfortable in the environment. Next slide, please. Oh boy, modular construction. This is really, I think a lot of people wish they had this now. Modular construction can mean a lot of things to a lot of different organizations, but the ability to tear things down and rebuild them, reshape things, resize spaces and areas, that will continue to become more and more important. This is an example on the screen of modular construction for a health assessment station. So whatever that means for an organization, that could mean every employee has to have their temperature checked, or you're assessing their travel, or it could be a visitor and guest assessment situation. But building those for the short term, midterm, long term, or repurposing that modularity for something else down the road. Next slide, please. Another example of modular construction in areas that can be ebb and flow. So when we talked earlier about those conference rooms that were big that are now really small, maybe it ends up being, we're going to end up with smaller conference rooms. I think you're going to end up Zoom meetings for a while. So do we want to have those Zoom meetings at our desks? How disruptive is that for other people? Maybe smaller dedication of space where you can pick up your device and go have those Zoom meetings makes sense. Modular construction, it really creates flexible spaces that can ebb and flow as we evolve through the COVID. Next slide, please. Another beautiful example of modular construction. Okay, next slide. I'm trying to zip here through fast. Next steps for the long term are hands-free. I think we're all used to toilet fixtures, plumbing fixtures that have a hands-free or motion sensor activation. That could be soap, water, toilets. Well, now think of it in other places. Think of it in trash. Think about motion sensor doors, not just for entry into your space, but potentially every office or conference room or enclosed space. No hands, hands-free. That's really where we need to be and to start thinking about it. You can take this to whatever magnitude you want. If we think about cabinets in your break room or cabinets where you keep your office supplies or your copy paper, maybe the doors come off. Now we're not touching a handle. We're just grabbing that ream of paper and moving on. Changes in what we touch and how we touch are going to be important. Okay, next slide. Oh, This is really some other long-term considerations that we really want to make sure we're thinking through. Simplifying transition spaces. This could be your reception area or your elevator lobby. Taking furniture out, using less tactical materials, simplifying the cleanability of those areas. We also want to definitely consider fabrics that are bleach cleanable, but I also would tell you that there is a lot of technology out there with fibers that can support cleanability, antibacterial technology. So really understanding what is in the fabric or upholstery is important. I would say that upholstery fabric, it's a nice thing. We like it. It makes us feel comfy and cozy in it like at home, but it also helps us absorb sound. So we don't have to get rid of fabric and think everything has to be hard to be cleanable. We still can clean fabric, it just has to be the right fabric. Technology upgrades to your remote availability, that's going to be key. Remote access and remote work will continue. I think we're going to see happen here in the long term, you're not going to just have one place of work. You're going to have multiple places of work, whether that's your home office 2 days a week, that's in your office 1 day a week, or that's in a shared collaborative space. So being able to be flexible with your technology, that's going to continue to be really critical. We are also probably going to see some changes in use of space. Dense floor plans, I think that might be adjusting. We might also really want to revisit the size of our conferencing or meeting spaces. And we probably are going to see an increase in private spaces, whether that's an office or a private conferencing space. Technology is also available for us to track. When you think about rotation of workforce and people coming and going on different shifts, well, free address or just coming into the office and sitting at a workstation that maybe I'm not going to sit at tomorrow, I'm going to sit here today. I really think that's what we're going to see continue, because now I own the sanitation of that. I'm coming in, I'm going to sit here today, I'm going to clean it just for me. When I leave, I'm going to clean it again. And the next day when I go somewhere else, I'm going to clean that. I'm owning the sanitation of the place I want to work. If you think about the desk that you leave and you think no one's coming to that till the next time you come back to it, that's probably not the case. Someone's going to drop something on your desk, or a package is going to be delivered potentially. You want to make sure you're owning your sanitation of your environment. But tracking where people have been or what desks they're using, what conferencing spaces are important. There's a lot of technology available that you can book spaces and that you can track the analytics. Especially if there's been an outbreak, you'll know exactly where people were and what they've interacted with. Using architectural finishes to define space, that's not anything new. We've always used finishes to define path of travel and use of space. I think we're going to see that continue. Next slide, please. Change management. Jackie mentioned this earlier, and I would truly say you can't communicate enough. You can't ask people enough. You cannot engage with them enough, but potentially putting out a survey at this point, asking your people, how do they feel about coming back to work? What anxieties do they have? It's a great opportunity to open that dialogue, have some communication, and really establish some parameters for facts for foundation versus taking the emotion out of things. And I think that's everything I had today.
Perfect. Thank you, Jackie. We appreciate that. And now we will have Brenda from ServPro to kind of talk about some cleaning of the office space. So Brenda.
Thanks, Kristen. Just a little bit, real quick, ServPro does commercial and residential restoration for fire, water, and now we also have a cleaning service as well. So let's talk about, are you ready? So Kristen, if you can move forward. So being open for business is our new journey moving forward. Businesses need to talk with employees. Employees may be hesitant about returning to work, and customers may wonder, is it safe to go in? You know, our traditional handshake has long gone by now, and now we're replacing it with tapping our feet or elbows, and things are changing. So the COVID-19 really changed what it means to be clean. 89% of consumers are concerned about walking into a business, and business owners need to keep customers, their employees safe, but they also have to communicate that our business is ready to open. We're clean. We took the best decisions of cleaning and disinfecting our business, and that all has to be communicated. Next screen, Kristen. So let's talk about cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. Cleaning, our old-fashioned cleaning, grabbing your bucket, your towel, and physically going around and cleaning all areas. You're removing the germs, you're taking away that soil and dirt that you're seeing. So grab your bucket, water, detergent, and do a little scrubbing. Now, cleaning doesn't necessarily kill the germs, but what it does is it helps remove them and lower the risk of them spreading. Next screen, please. So we have sanitizing. So for a product to be sanitized, it has to be registered and show a reduction of 99.9% in each type of bacteria and surface. So what that means is basically, if you have your countertops and your countertops are laminated and it has to be tested to see if it's gonna pass, then it has to be tested if it's granite, corian, whatever, it's your faucet. So each time to be sanitized, it has to be tested. What sanitizing does is lowers the number of germs. What you really want to do is disinfecting. So by working with the EPA on their site and look for a registered product that kills germs on surfaces is really what's going to destroy and activate those undesirable bacteria. So you really want to go from cleaning to disinfecting. Next screen. So again, clean the visible dirt surface, and then followed by disinfecting is really going to give you your best practice of preventing the COVID-19. So make sure cleaning and disinfecting is really a big part of your plan in moving forward and opening your business, or maybe you're already open, but you really need to concentrate on those two things. Next screen. What to clean. So we all know the standard doorknobs, the poles, the stairways, but think about if you have an elevator in your office. Think about when you go to the elevator, do you hold the elevator open a little bit? So that area needs to be clean, the buttons. But think about the height and swivel controls on your desk chair. Those are important things that maybe you don't think about. If you have a small kitchen in your office, the microwave handle, the buttons, the dishwasher handle, salt and pepper shakers, all those little things, and even like the copier machine, all the keypads, the paper where you pull the tray out. Think about those things, and even your HVAC filter. That's important to make sure it gets changed and cleaned. It's recommended that you do 1 square foot around each area. And just think about that. Step back and think about when you touch something, how much more are you touching just that one piece? And think about your bathrooms, just locking the bathroom door. Do you think about cleaning that? You really want to step away, think about the little uncommon things versus all the major common things, and disinfect those. Couple of good examples. Think about when you're at Target. You go to Target, you get a cart, you're pushing your cart, you're looking at something, and you're in front of your cart. Someone comes through and says, "Excuse me, your cart's in the way." Do you go back to the handle of the cart, or do you pull it by the edge to move it out of the way? So those are things you need to think about. Pretend you're a customer or client going into your business. What are you looking at? How do you feel? What are you going to touch? And those are the things you really want to make sure you disinfect. Next screen. Products. Everybody wants to know about products, and they're hard to find. But if you can, and they're around, Clorox wipes, disinfectant wipes, and sprays, those are all good things. Lysol, peroxide. You can even make your own solution at home, diluting household bleach. Can also, alcohol solutions with at 70% alcohol may be used. Those are good things to keep in mind. You know, try to stock up a little bit on some of these things, because I think we're going to need them going forward for quite some time. And it just gives yourself and everybody else a little peace of mind, than knowing that you have those at your side. Next one. Added peace of mind. So you can clean on your own, or you can hire a professional to do the cleaning for you. If you hire, you definitely want someone that has the IICRC certification, which is Institute Inspection Cleaning and Restoration Certificate. What they're going to do, this certificate is a biometric, they utilize EPA approved hospital grade disinfectant and are compliant with the CDC standards. Most other companies will also provide you signage that you can put on your door, so that gives peace of mind to your customers and your employees. Here with ServPro, we use all our disinfectants are on the EPA list and the SARS-CoV-2, which is really what the virus where COVID-19 came from. So ServPro's products are out there. We do a fogging. It seeps through into all those little crevices, and then we come down and do a major wipe down. So if you do decide to hire a professional, or if it's us or somebody else, definitely make sure they have that IICRC certification to give you that good peace of mind. Next, Kristen. So our environment is changing, as we all know. It's important that employees and customers are all informed, and communication is always going to be a big part of it. So let your employees know what actions you're taking. How are you preventing the COVID-19 exposure? Routine meetings, posting in the office or on your website. Let them know what you're doing. Identify essential employees that are, going to take control, and kind of as, I apologize, I'm not sure who said it, was Jackie or Verma, but identify an employee that's going to take care of all the COVID-19 and and the functions, doing the posting, holding the meetings. And make sure you get your employees' feedback so they feel comfortable that they can talk to somebody how they feel. Give each employee a little bottle of disinfectant at their desk so they can wipe down at any time. I mean, how many times, maybe not so much more, but we do our social distance and we may come and stand at somebody's cubicle. And if you put your hand on top of that ledge, when you they walk away, you could quickly go and wipe it all off and feel at home. But allowing them to have that at their desk gives them that also feel that they have control of what they want to wipe down, or maybe they want to re-wipe it down. Don't forget to do posters, signage, remind employees safe practice, social distancing, hygiene, coughing, sneezing, all that good stuff that you heard millions and millions of times. Next screen, Kristen. On top of communication with your employees, don't forget your clients and your customers. Let them know that what your protocols are. Let them know that your business has been sanitized or disinfected. Again, if you're working with someone professional, they can give you those things. Or, just let them know. The stickers or ropes to direct traffic. Social media is huge to let people know that you're out there open. And then have hand sanitizer available when they walk in. I was at a store this weekend and it was great. Opened the door, I had hand sanitizer I could use right away, so I did it, and then I used it again when I walked out. It's a really nice feel of comfort when you visit another business. And again, if you have the possibility of designating an employee to do the proactive cleaning, that's always really well. They know what their function is and what they have to do. Next, Kristen. Maintaining safe behavior. We all know 6 feet away, it's 2 arms lengths. As Verma talked, you may have to redesign your floor plan and or add screens in place of business. There's a lot to think about, but these are all things we have to make changes to now. Next. Cleaning and disinfecting. I'm going back to that. You need to make that your normal routine, you know, clean and disinfectant. And this has to be part of your safe return to work, and it has to be, you know, done consistently to help reduce. And it'll help reduce, but what it's going to do is help bring those clients and customers in the door. It's really important that they know that you are playing, you know, you're doing everything you can to play the big part of keeping your business clean. And then having the personal protection equipment on hand. It's going to be essential. The masks, the disinfectants, sanitizers. These are all going to be essential now, along with, you know, used to be our copier paper, now it's totally different, you know. So these are important things to keep in mind as you continue moving forward and open your business. Next screen, Kristen. I'm always available for questions. There's my contact information. I really appreciate your time and everything, but good luck to everyone, because it's crucial out there, and we all want to be open up to 100% real soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Brenda. I think one of the things that was evident in everything we've heard today is that no one size fits all. Take your time, be thoughtful about it, and your clients and your employees are going to appreciate that. So we did have a couple of questions come through chat. So question for Brenda. Non-antibacterial soft surfaces, how often should we have them cleaned on average?
Ooh. That's kind of a tricky one. I mean, you know, the question is, you know, if it's a chair, I'm not sure if they're talking about a chair that someone sits in or whatever, you know, definitely have it cleaned before everybody returns to work, because you want to definitely get that clean. And then I would say, you know, gauge it kind of depending on what your traffic's like. You know, if it's a waiting area and you're getting traffic, I personally would probably look at it every, you know, maybe once a month, you know, or do some good spraying on it, to like some Lysol spray to help get that. And definitely always wiping down the handles and all the high touch point areas. But fabric is a little tricky, but you definitely make sure you test it before you do the whole area, and make sure whatever you're using won't destroy or bleach your fabric. But I would definitely kind of gauge how much people are using it, and then definitely either a month or every 2 months. We are doing a business every weekend. So we have a business that we go in, and every weekend we're in there re-disinfecting, we're fogging, and we're wiping down every weekend for them.
Perfect, thank you. This one is for Jackie. Do you recommend any additional forms for employees to sign related to reviewing and understanding new policies related to COVID? And if so, are there any templates for employers to use?
I would. So there are a few templates that we have on our website that you may be able to use. I think I brought up bringing people back to work, and whether they're coming back from a furlough, those are things that they can sign. There are a couple of options that we have on our website. So I take a look at those. It's always best to just have a couple of things documented so that everybody knows what they're working toward together, in the event that it comes back. From an HR perspective, you never know when it's going to come back and haunt you. So, signatures are good, not required, but a good idea.
Perfect. And then one for Verna as well. I think this is a phase 2 type question, or forward Dane phase 2 kind of question. Do you have any idea of what businesses should budget to implement some of the baseline office setup changes, maybe by total employees, square footage, etc.?
Well, that's kind of a big can of worms there. It could be some of those plexiglass screens. Then depending on the length and the height and the width, you know, those are probably going to be your most affordable. And I would anticipate that for a workstation, you could probably put a plexiglass screen around them for $1,000 or so. If you're going to look at something a little bit more permanent, like a glass stack on that goes on top of your workstation, that investment would be higher, and that will be depending on the manufacturer, the height, and all those types of things. So you could spend, and again, depending on the workstation configuration, it could be just a simple screen, and that could be a couple $100s. That would be very easy to do. I would look at it more from a person, a head count cost investment than I would a square footage. And the other element to consider is that you have other areas that need protection as well. Reception desk, conference tables, all those types of things. So that cost could mitigate quite rapidly, or escalate, I should say, quite rapidly. You know, we definitely are here to help you figure that all out, and we can help work towards a budget for you and highlight maybe the primary areas first and then go from there.
Perfect, thanks. This is just a reminder that if you guys have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat. I do have another question. I think this is probably for Jackie. If our employees sign papers with new policies and you are rotating staff, how do you enforce the policies if you know they are not being followed?
Hi, John.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I think maybe, Jackie, I think that one was for you. So if you have employees that have signed papers with new policies, but you know they're not being followed, do you have any recommendations on what an employer can do?
Sorry, I was trying to look for
That's
it.
okay.
Kind of threw me off a little bit. I mean, just like any policy, if an employee isn't following it, it's important that you stop what you're doing right away and address it. I mean, it's a performance management issue, just like anything else. So if people need to be sent home, you know, whatever that is, you know, hopefully have an HR representative or something of that nature. But if you run into something like that, it needs to be addressed right away. It's, you know, it's more than just performance management at that point. It's, you know, it's safety as well.
Okay, I think that completes the questions in the chat. If anyone wants to take themselves off of mute, you are free to do so to ask a question. Otherwise, we'll hang out here for a few minutes, see if anyone else has questions they'd like. I do just want to plug here on the bottom of the screen, on this week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we are doing another session. It's called Marketing During a Pandemic. So we're going to touch on, you know, 10 top tips, some social media, how to kind of refresh your brand during this time, storytelling, and then kind of who is our new customer. I know a lot of us, some of us rely on tourism and tourists, and since no one's going to be traveling, how do we accommodate those people that are local and kind of figuring out who they are. So let me just check the chat. Lots of huge thank yous, which I would love to echo. Thank you to Jackie, Verna, and Brenda for taking time and sharing your expertise. We certainly appreciate that. I think you guys are off the hook for questions. All right, well, thanks again, everyone, for attending. A huge thank you to our panelists today. We appreciate you. And hopefully we will see you guys in person very soon. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.